What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Fam God, and about to get into this video as to why GSP, George St. Pierre, is overrated.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I know some of you motherfuckers foaming at the mouth right now. Somebody probably broke their fucking fingers, commenting something crazy. Haven't even begun to talk about my argument before motherfuckers going crazy, but I don't care. If you mad, get over it. Don't give a fuck. GSP is overrated. Now, am I saying that GSP isn't a great fighter? No. GSP is a great fighter and one of the greatest fighters of all time. GSP was a beast. But you can still be a great fighter, a great athlete, a great whatever, and be overrated. And GSP is. GSP is overrated because you guys compare him to Jon Jones. Now, I know somebody going crazy hearing that name, Jon Jones, the guy that tests positive multiple times for steroids, the guy that has done, we know all the things Jon has done. We don't gotta get into it. He's done some crazy shit.
Dude, I wonder if this is that fighter's car. Jon Jones?
No condoning it, because you know how you motherfuckers is. You say something good about Jon and now you automatically gotta be an advocate for DV and all this other bullshit. Grow the fuck up. That's where you gotta overrate him when you compare him to Jon Jones. Now the people that say that Jon Jones, bro, Jon is out of the discussion for greatest of all time. The dude popped multiple times for steroids. Once you pop for steroids, it's over. You can no longer be in the discussion. I understand that. I understand that argument. And I'm not here to debate those guys. The guys that say that Jon can't be the GOAT because he tests positive for steroids, I'm not here to argue that. Because he did test positive for steroids. And that's on him. I'm not one of these guys that's gonna down that steroid here. My problem is you motherfuckers who try to say that George St. Pierre, yes, Jon tests positive for steroids, but George is just better than Jon Jones. It's not just steroids. George is just better. He was more skilled than Jon Jones. He has a significantly better resume than Jon Jones. Jon Jones fought a bunch of dinosaurs. George was fighting guys in their prime. We getting into all that today. We doing some exposing today. It's overrated ass resume. It's overrated ass skill set. The ability to hang today. Some of you motherfuckers say that he would be prime Usman. I saw a graph a few days ago where it was George St. Pierre versus Kamaru Usman in their prime, and I think George won over 90% of the vote. That's what I'm saying when you overrating the guy. Saying that he prime GSP would be the prime Usman. To me, that's that you overrating him. Saying that he would beat Shavkat, he would beat Hamza, he would dominate today. It's crazy. And we getting into all this after the intro.
Hey, who wants smoke? Telling me face to face. Remember back in 11th grade, I dirted up my only case. Give my round of applause. In a couple months, I done made a way. On why niggas dropped the rollers and went to the Cartiers. No, I'm a hood nigga, I mismatched designer with the J. Don't still post on the blog, eat a boss of churches before a state. A mirror is in a Burberry trench coat, extend to hide the drape. Backdoor gang, I'm king snake, still quick to bake your ass a cake. Brr. Might take this pussy, try and snap it up and go live with it. He try to buy it back, rob him.
Now, before we get into the video as to why GSP is overrated for me, let me address you clowns that's gonna say, dude, you a casual. You don't know nothing about MMA. You couldn't have been watching it that long if you're saying something this crazy out the gate. George St. Pierre overrated. Well, for your information, I've been watching MMA since middle school. Maybe even elementary. So, I've been watching it for a while. I've been watching MMA since Quentin Rampage Jackson was in Pride. Quentin was the guy that really made me start to watch the sport. And ever since then, I've been hooked. Watched Fedor, watched his reign, watched Matt Hughes, watched GSP, Anderson, Jon. I watched those three guys reign in its entirety. So, just to, debunk you clowns that's gonna say that bullshit, because you guys are like NPCs. You use the same insults. Oh, you a casual. All this stupid shit. Just so to address that. Now I can go all day as to why GSP is overrated for me, but that'll be an hour-long video. It's so much shit to that I could talk about. I mean, this dude and his fans just get on my fucking nerves. You piss me off. I know you guys gonna say, bro, how can George piss you off? He wears a Ninja Turtle headband. He wears a gi. He bows and all this other respectful shit. And it's way past that why he pissed me off, but more so his fans. So I can go all day as to why GSP overrated, but I'm not gonna take up all your time. So I broke it down into 3 parts. The first part being the resume. This overrated ass resume of George St. Pierre. I often see this picture with George St. Pierre, Khabib, and Jon, and the talking about the win-loss between those 3 guys, past opponents, and how GSP's opponents were obviously so much better than Jon's opponents. It's just so ridiculous, such bullshit. You guys know it. It's really one of the only arguments you can try to use, but we finna debunk that because that's just crazy. Second thing is gonna be skills. You guys overrate George St. Pierre's skills. And again, am I saying he's not a great fighter? No. But you guys overrate him. You just overrate him. It's ridiculous. You guys say that if Jon and George were the same size, George would beat him based on his skills and him being more skilled than Jon. We finna get into that because that's so damn stupid. It's so damn stupid. And the third part being the ability to hang today. And that part probably pisses me off more than anything because it's so easy to debunk that. And I can't wait to get into that argument because it's just ridiculous. I mean, we have so much data to back that bullshit up. I can't prove that if Jon and George were the same size, Jon would beat the fuck out of him. I can't prove that. I know it, but I can't prove it. But it's still different things that I can bring up as to why that's just bullshit. But the ability to hang today, that's ridiculous. And I can't wait to get into that shit. Cause y'all piss me off about that more than anything. Saying that George is one of the only all-time greats whose skill transition perfectly today. He would dominate today. He would be a champion today. That's just, oh my God. I can't believe y'all say this stupid shit. He would be a champion today. But we finna get into it. Now, getting into the first part of my rant, which is gonna be talking about the resumes between GSP and Jon Jones. Now, initially I thought this was pretty cut and dry. I thought this was pretty unanimous that Jon Jones had the best resume of any fighter, period. I thought this was just, you know, I didn't even think this was a conversation. But I first started to hear about this actually after Jon Jones won the heavyweight title, which is crazy. Jon won the heavyweight title, and the following Monday I started to browse YouTube, started to watch different MMA content creators' reaction to Jon winning the heavyweight title. It was a big deal. And I stumbled across Luke Thomas. Now, Luke Thomas, a lot of people don't like him. I actually kind of like Luke Thomas. Think he's good at what he does. I love the setup he got. The dude knows his shit. I like Luke Thomas, and he's been around for a while. And you know, you just get used to seeing the same people. So, like I said, I like Luke Thomas, but he said something in his post UFC 285 live stream that was just so crazy to me. I was like, Luke, what the fuck are you talking about? Did you just say that? I want you guys to check this shit out.
A lot of UFC staff and employees and the broadcast were saying that. A lot of people do believe that, but there is some dispute about whether it's actually GSP because he had to fight much tougher guys, which I do think is true. So BC, where are you
in the public's eye, it seems right now? You just made a comment that I think you said it out of context. You said GSP fought better guys. Do you mean that? Because overall, you think GSP fought better competition?
Do I think he fought better competition every time? Certainly not. Do I think in general his strength of schedule was tougher than Jon's? Yes, I do.
Stop it. Get some help.
Luke Thomas. Luke Thomas. What are you talking about? With all due respect, because I do like you, but what the fuck are you talking about? GSP fought better guys? He did? Cause I didn't know that. I wish you would have let all of us know. Cause we didn't know. I sure as hell didn't know that GSP fought better guys than Jon Jones. It's better wins you talking about, Luke. You talking about Dan Hardy? The Dan Hardy who was on a 4-fight win streak before fighting GSP and after fighting GSP losing 3 straight? That good win? Or are you talking about Thiago Alves, who was on a 7-fight win streak before fighting GSP and after fighting GSP only won 6 fights out of 15, lost 9 out of 15 fights? Talking about that great win? Or are you talking about Nick Diaz, who fought GSP coming off of a loss to Carlos Condit? Or are you talking about Carlos Condit, the guy who was on a 5-fight win streak before fighting GSP and after fighting GSP only winning 4 fights out of 12? Talking about that great win? Those great wins those are great wins you talking about? Now he did have some good wins. Talk about Jake Shields. Jake Shields was a great win. Jake Shields has a decent resume. Jake Shields beat Carlos Condit, Paul Daly. He beat Robert Lawler. He beat Dan Henderson. And he was on a crazy streak before him and GSP fought. Even John Fish was a great win. John Fish was on a 13-fight win streak. It was a great win. And even after George beat him, he won 5 straight. Those are good wins. But those guys were one-dimensional fighters. Let's talk about that. 2 grapplers with horrible stand-up. No disrespect to Jake Shields, but if you watch that George St. Pierre fight, the dude was punching like a girl. I'm just being real. Looked like he just learned how to throw punches for the first time. He glorified grappler with shit stand-up. John Fish, a glorified grappler with shit stand-up. We're gonna get deep into those fights a little later in the video. But again, to me, those were good wins, but comparing them to Jon Jones, and I'm not even gonna bring up BJ Penn. BJ Penn was a lightweight. BJ Penn fought the majority of his career at lightweight. So what are these great wins you talking about? These wins that's just so much better than Jon Jones wins. Now Luke Thomas, this wasn't the only thing that he said in that live stream. And it's the reason why I brought up how those guys performed after fighting GSP. I want you guys to watch this one too.
All is true.
Okay, who are the better guys comparatively? Like, actually compare this. I'm interested, Luke. You got me interested.
So
okay?
GSP, okay, I mean, it's kind of funny, right? Everyone's like, well, GSP fought better guys. It's true. I mean, here's a couple ways you can kind of know that, right? The average age, I looked this up and I made sure I did the math before today's show. So the average age of Jon's opponents in title fights, obviously we're talking all UFC here, is 32. The average age of GSP's opponents in title fights is 29. But that's a little...
Now you guys heard Luke Thomas bring up the age argument, right? And I've heard this argument before, that Jon Jones fought guys past their prime, GSP was fighting guys in their prime, GSP fought better guys. And you heard me bring up how those guys performed after fighting GSP. So the question I gotta ask is, if those guys were in their prime, and those guys were such young guys, why did they fall off after GSP beat them? Why did they? Why did Thiago Alves lose 9 of his next 15 fights? Which one of y'all want to answer that? Why did Carlos Condit only win 4 fights out of 12 if he was such a great win? Why did Nick Diaz lose right after that? Why did Jake Shields lose right after that? I'm saying if these are such great wins, because I look at how a guy performs after the fact. I look at a guy like Alexander Volkanovski. He beat Max Holloway 3 times. Max Holloway, you could never make the argument that Max Holloway wasn't a great win. You can never make the argument that Max Holloway was slowing down. Max Holloway continued to win, continued to beat top contenders like Arnold Allen. beating guys like Yair Rodriguez, beating guys like TKZ. So those wins for Volk is just aging gracefully because Max is continuing to win. I bring that up to talk about Jon's wins. Let's talk about Glover Teixeira, who was on a 20-fight win streak after Jon beat him, became a champion, beating Jan Blachowicz. What about Daniel Cormier, who was on a 15-fight win streak, undefeated? Jon Jones dominated DC. DC went on to beat Alexander Gustafsson, beating Anthony Rumble Johnson twice, moving up to the heavyweight division and beating Stipe. Jon Jones dominated the decision and then knocked him out. KO'd him, put him to sleep. Even Jon's earlier wins against guys like Lyoto Machida and Vitor Belfort, two guys that would later go on to fight for championships in the middleweight division. Lyoto Machida beating good fighters like Ryan Bader, who had won 10 or 14. Beating guys like Dan Henderson, beating guys like Gegard Mousasi. Vitor Belfort having 3 straight knockouts over Michael Bisping, Luke Rockhold, and Dan Henderson. You're gonna argue that those guys are past their prime, then why are they continuing to win? But the guys that George beating, the motherfuckers is going on losing streaks. But I love caping for GSP. You just love them. You love GSP. Your precious GSP. Overrated ass GSP. He fought better guys. Y'all gotta explain this shit to me. How the fuck did he fight better guys than Jon Jones? Who you talking about? Thiago Alves? Jesus Christ. Was GSP skilled? Yes, obviously. Obviously, GSP is one of the most skilled fighters of all time. But why I say you guys overrate George St. Pierre's skills is because you say he's more skilled than Jon Jones, which is just crazy. Let's talk about the wrestling. I'm actually gonna get into George St. Pierre. Let me give George St. Pierre the wrestling. GSP was a great wrestler. I was going into this expecting to give the wrestling to Jon Jones, considering he out-wrestled Daniel Cormier and other great wrestlers, but I'm actually get into George St. Pierre. I went back to watch some of George St. Pierre's old fights, and he really surprised me with his transitions, the way he would transition from double to single, and he wasn't just an average wrestler that, dive for a double leg. He was real skilled in his wrestling. So wrestling, I'm gonna give to GSP. Grappling, I'm gonna give to Jon Jones. Jon Jones was a more dangerous grappler. GSP would take guys down and he could control them, but Jon Jones finishes guys. George St. Pierre don't finish no fucking body. Out of all his entire reign, I don't even remember a finish. He finished Matt Hughes, he finished Matt Serra the second time after he got knocked the fuck out, but other than that, he wasn't finishing nobody. Jon Jones finished Lyoto Machida. It wasn't on the ground, but it was a grappling sequence. He finished DC on the ground. He finished Vitor Belfort on the ground. He finished Quinn Rampage Jackson on the ground. He finished Cyril Gane on the ground recently. He finished Chael Sonnen on the ground. He was a finisher. GSP wasn't. So the grappling, I'm gonna give to Jon Jones, but wrestling, I'm gonna give to GSP. The striking, that's why I say you guys overrate GSP, because you talk like GSP was just this exceptional striker, but he wasn't. I brought up the John Fitch and the Jake Shields fight. You saw Jake Shields strike. It was horrible. It was an abomination to striking. But he bust GSP up. John Fitch too. Both of them had GSP leaking. Fucked up. Two horrible strikers. So the striking, I mean, it's just laughable to compare GSP striking to Jon Jones. I mean, look at Jon Jones. Look at the innovation he brought into the sport, the spinning elbow. He didn't bring oblique kicks in, but he definitely made it famous. The side kicks to the leg, step in elbow, throwing it like a jab. I mean, it's not even, for me, it's not even close. The striking gap between GSP and Jon Jones is huge. The cardio, that's a wash. The chin, obviously I'm gonna get it to Jon Jones. George St. Pierre has been knocked the fuck out. got knocked out by Maxera. Johnny Hendricks had him doing the stanky leg. Jon Jones has never been wobbled, never been dropped. In my opinion, the greatest chin of all time. People always bring up Max Holloway and all these other guys, but in my opinion, Jon Jones has the greatest chin ever. Out of all the guys that people bring up, all those guys have been rocked. Jon hasn't. Never seen Jon in a bad situation. So chin, clear Jon Jones. IQ, Jon Jones. The way he set it up with Cyril Gane throwing it straight, wrapping him up. He knew he wasn't gonna protect his neck coming up, choked him out. The way he set up DC for the head kick in the second fight, brilliant. So fight IQ, I'm gonna give to Jon Jones. George just out-wrestled strikers and out-struck grapplers. So there's nothing intelligent about that. It was common sense. Out-strike the wrestler with horrible striking. Out-wrestle the striker with horrible wrestling. What's so smart about that? You guys talk about him like he's a genius, and he's not. Jon Jones is a fighting genius. Period. So that concludes the skill portion of this argument. I mean, to me, like I said, it's not really a debate. We're gonna get into the next argument. Now, finally made it to the end of my rant, the last section. George St. Pierre wouldn't be able to hang today. Now, you guys heard me bring up the poll that I saw a few days ago saying that George St. Pierre versus Prime Usman, GSP winning over 90% of the vote. Now, if GSP won, let's say 60% of the vote, even 70% of the vote, it wouldn't have pissed me off as much as it did. I mean, obviously I don't agree, but that GSP would beat Prime Usman, but what pissed me is the 90%. The fact that GSP won over 90% of the vote. And it just showed me that, you know, I don't know if it's nostalgia or the inability to let go of your heroes, the inability to let go of you know, the past, people who you saw growing up. And I guess, you know, guys got the highlight reel of GSP playing in the back of their head when they think about that fight. GSP dropping John Fitch all over the place, GSP out wrestling everybody. So you guys think that would be Usman, but you guys gotta start living in reality. George St. Pierre enjoyed a significant skill advantage over everybody he fought at that time. The majority of the guys that GSP fought were one-dimensional fighters. Matt Hughes, one of the greatest fighters of all time, but he was a wrestler with shit stand-up. Go back and watch that George St. Pierre Matt Hughes 2 fight. It's one of the most embarrassing performances I ever seen in my life. It looked like somebody, they grabbed somebody out of the stands, put him on some big ass shorts and said, go fight GSP. Like, it was horrible. Dan Hardy, a striker with horrible grappling. John Fitch, grappler with horrible striking. Jake Shields, grappler with horrible striking. Thiago Alves, striker with horrible grappling. Nobody was really well-rounded around that time, but BJ Penn. BJ Penn was a lightweight. Another reason why I say George St. Pierre wouldn't be able to hang today, I really look at the Johnny Hendricks fight. That's really the litmus test for me that kind of proves why George St. Pierre wouldn't be able to hang today. Because if you watch that fight, Johnny Hendricks had the clear strength advantage. When they was clenched up against the cage, Johnny moved GSP around effortlessly. Didn't even look like he was trying. When George St. Pierre tried to do the same thing, you could tell he was expending significantly more energy. Johnny Hendricks was clearly the more stronger man. I heard people say Kamaru Usman wouldn't be able to out-wrestle George St. Pierre. Really? Because I disagree. I think Kamaru Usman would be able to out-wrestle and bully GSP because Johnny Hendricks did. I really don't think you guys remember that fight like I do. Or if you do, you just ignore it. You just want to say GSP will win. Because if you watch that fight, Johnny Hendricks controlled and bullied GSP. Anytime he tried to take GSP down, he did, and he kept him there. The few times George St. Pierre did take Johnny down, Johnny popped right back up to the feet. That's why George St. Pierre, he didn't want to fucking fight guys like Anderson Silva or Johnny Hendricks, because he know anytime he in a fight where he can't control where the fight goes, he know he fucked. That would be the same thing today. Another reason why I say he wouldn't be able to win is the evolution of the size of these guys today. George St. Pierre was 5'10". That would be an average lightweight today. The majority of guys he was fighting were 5'9". Johnny Hendricks, Josh Koscheck, Thiago Alves, Matt Hughes. All these guys were 5'9". Dan Hardy, he was listed at 6 feet, but he looked like the smaller man in there than me. Like all these guys he was fighting were 5'9". Matt Serra was 5'6". The few guys he did fight that were 6 feet tall, Carlos Condit, these guys were lanky. Dan Hardy listed at 6 feet. Dude, these dudes was lanky. Usman is 6 feet tall and huge, jacked up. Colby Covington over 6 feet tall. Shavkat like 6'2". Hamzat 6'2". Wonderboy 6'2". George not beating these guys. He was, and again, these guys are well-rounded. These are well-rounded, bigger guys. And you guys talking about he would just be able to hang today and compete with all these guys. I'm not gonna say he wouldn't be able to compete. I wouldn't disrespect him and say he couldn't compete, but he wouldn't win those fights. I think George St. Pierre would get finished and beat and bullied by all these guys. It would be competitive for a while, but that little weak ass jab at range and being a wet blanket for 25 minutes, that shit not working today. You're not pulling that shit off against Usman. You're not doing that shit against fucking Gilbert Burns. I don't think he beat Usman, Colby Covington, Leon Edwards, Shavkat, Hamzat, Wonderboy. Oh, he would beat Wonderboy, he'd take him down. Why Rory McDonald did? He styled on Rory McDonald. So I disagree. I think George St. Pierre would have a hard time against Wonderboy. I don't think he beat Bilal Muhammad. I don't think he beat Jeff Neal. I truly don't think he would be like a top. I think he would probably be top 10, maybe. And that's a big maybe. George St. Pierre, I don't believe he would hang today. Just look at the fight. Look at the Johnny Hendricks fight. He got bullied. And I'm pretty sure Usman would do the same thing. Oh, Johnny Hendricks, he was juiced to the gills. Would you to be the same? Yeah, I would be the same motherfuckers that'll call Usman the CEO of EPO. So which one is it? Are both of them juiced? Is Usman juicing too? Or is he not? Which one is it? Give it up, man. You guys got to give it up. GSP would not be able to hang today. He would get his ass beat the fuck up today. He might be able to compete for a round or two, but after that, the gig is up. They running straight through him. You telling me Prime Usman putting that pressure on him, sticking that jab in his face, and being a dog in there? You telling me GSP not having nothing to offer him on the feet? No sting in his shots to bag Usman up. He gonna bore you to a decision with Usman? Winning a decision? I don't think so. And then I'm sure some people might say, oh, with GSP, he got the coaching advantage. He got Faraz Zahabi, the most overrated fucking coach in MMA history. Who the fuck is he produced? Other than GSP, which I think that was Greg Jackson, honestly. Who the fuck is he produced other than GSP, maybe, and Roy McDonald? Who else has he produced? Cause he's said the hand of death and all this shit with Conor McGregor. People think he's some genius or something. This motherfucker ain't produced nobody. Usman would have Trevor Whitman, a real coach. Not this boring ass, overrated ass Faraz Zahabi. The most overrated coach ever. He not Trevor Whitman. He not Matt Hume. He not Greg Jackson. He not any of these guys. Overrated as hell, so he wouldn't even have the coaching advantage. That goes to Usman. Yeah, man, y'all gotta get this shit up, bro. It's not even a conversation. Not to me, it's not. I saw GSP. You guys wanna reinvent who he was and change who GSP was. I don't. I just see him for who he was. He was a great fighter at that time. But comparing him to Jon Jones, comparing him to these guys today, it's just stupid. That boring ass try to win a decision shit not working today. It's not. People say George St. Pierre is one of the few guys who would be a champion today. I disagree. I think he the only all-time great who wouldn't be a champion today. Who wouldn't even be ranked today. Will barely be ranked today. I think Anderson could be a champion today. I think Demetrius Johnson could be a champion today. Jon Jones, obviously. Cain Velasquez, I think he could be a champion today. Prime Stipe, I think he could be a champion today. Fedor, I believe, could hang today. George couldn't. He the only motherfucker I think couldn't hang today. Jose Aldo would still be a great fighter today.
And one more thing I want to address in this video is you clowns that try to compare GSP coming back to beat Michael Bisping and comparing that and saying that was more impressive than Jon Jones coming back to beat Cyril Gane. Dude, y'all don't know how stupid this shit sound. Michael Bisping is one of the worst modern champions in UFC history. I often have this theory that because Michael Bisping was so important to the UFC branching into Europe, that the UFC gave him favorable matchups instead of throwing him to the wolves like the majority of middleweights at that time. You would have number 7 ranked Michael Bisping fighting motherfucking Talis Ladies and CB Dollaway. When you got guys like Gegard Mousasi in the division, you got Yoel Romero in the division, you got Jacare Souza in the division, you got Lyoto Machida in the division. You got all these great fighters in the division, yet Bisping is fighting Talis Ladies, and then you gave him old man Anderson Silva to say, oh, this is impressive. He beat Anderson Silva. Man, that was a washed up, way past his prime Anderson. That was nowhere near a peak Anderson Silva. Prime Anderson Silva would have knocked Bisping ass clean the fuck out. But y'all love overrating this bullshit ass win. Michael Bisping, throughout the majority of his career, was a slightly above average fighter. Anytime he fought the upper echelon of the middleweight division, he got his ass ran through like a hot samurai sword through fucking butter. Wasn't competitive. Vitor Belfort wasn't competitive. Dan Henderson wasn't competitive. He only made it competitive in the second fight when Dan Henderson was down there 60 years old in a rocking chair. And even that fight he barely won. And Dan Henderson wasn't even ranked. And you trying to compare that to Jon Jones beating Cyril Gane, the number 1 ranked heavyweight at the time? You can say, well, Cyril Gane is a one-dimensional fighter. He is a better fighter than Michael Bisping, period. And it's not even close, especially that version of Bisping that GSP fought. One-eyed Bisping, old man Bisping. This is not even the prime Michael Bisping, who wasn't really that fucking good. So I wanted to address that. Stop trying to compare GSP winning the middleweight title against Bisping and saying that's impressive. That wasn't impressive. That's why it didn't affect his all-time great status at all. It didn't make him far and away to go over Jon Jones. Even before Jon Jones came back and won the heavyweight title, the majority of fans still said Jon Jones was the GOAT even after GSP came back and won the middleweight title, because we all saw that was bullshit. We all saw he cherry-picked Bisping, the most beatable champion at that time. The most beatable champion ever. You can say Matt Serra Matt Serra the worst champion of all time, but I would like to think that Matt Serra was at least a top 10 welterweight even at that time. You can maybe argue, no, he wasn't, but I can argue that Michael Bisping wasn't even a top 15 fighter at that time. I think 15 fighters at that time would have beat Bisping. So stop with this shit.
Give it up, bro. Give it up. This the end of this section, but I don't give a fuck how y'all feel about it. I don't care. I know some people gonna be mad as hell. How dare you talk about George St. Pierre like this? How dare you try to diminish George St. Pierre like this? I'm not diminishing. I'm not saying he's not a great fighter. George St. Pierre was great, but stop overrating him.